Hey guys, this is Ryan Banta again here with my top five of the week. I was a little delayed. We had a pretty busy week last week with my kid being sick, and I'm actually home today with her again and getting the track and field season started for 2018. This new version of our top five today will cover the Indoor World Championships. First, I want to talk about number five on the list is the facility itself. If you're going to host a world championship, I think it's important that the facility can handle the number of athletes and the event itself. That wasn't a problem on race day at all per se. However, the warm up area, from what I was told, was outside, and there wasn't really much of a warm up track. And the number of DQs that we had in the World Championship was the highest that there has ever been. And a lot of those were related to cut-ins and lane violations and the bounce of the track and the angle of the track, which was really, really unique for a lot of these athletes who have never contested an event there. And then interestingly enough, there was a graphic that was put up in 2007 when the indoor championships were there in Birmingham. There was also a large number of disqualifications. So when we look at that facility, it's like, hey, the facility itself is not so much a problem. It's how you handle that facility. So for me, I think that what they probably should have done is opened up the track for different event groups on different days for them to be able to prepare and to have workouts and to train on that facility. That's not really hard to do. Considering that, you could divide it up by event. So 400-meter athletes show up at this time, 800-meter athletes show up at this time, and you have a window in which you can get on the track and do a little bit of work, do a little bit of warm-ups and stuff. And I know that that's organized chaos, and we don't want to risk anybody getting hurt, but we also don't want to risk having our event look silly because we have so many disqualifications. And I don't think there was necessarily, I know people are out there talking about there being favoritism and people are getting the benefit of the doubt that are from this country or that country. And I don't agree with that per se. I think if you're a violator, and you break the rule, if you will, then that unfortunately has consequences. However, if the facility is an odd one, and you don't have the opportunity to get on there and move about on it at full speed, I think that's also probably a huge problem that can be easily addressed just with a little bit of planning ahead of time. And for me, that frustrates me as a fan of track and field. It's kind of like watching American football. So like after a huge run or a huge pass reception, you're always looking around the field to see if there was a flag thrown. As a track athlete, that shouldn't be the first inclination is like, did we get disqualified? Did somebody mess up? Did I cut over too soon? Did I step on the line? Like, that shouldn't be the case. And these are track athletes, most of which have lots and lots of experience in the sport of track and field, and specifically indoor track. So you should be able to be used to how you attack a curve or a straightaway or a line or whatever, and not feel insecure that you're not doing it right. And one of the ways that we can eliminate that is providing a schedule before camp. I mean, this is the World Championships. This is where people are going to be making tens of thousands of dollars or opportunities for sponsorships later. And, sometimes this could be the career highlight of someone's life, and they're perfectly peaked out and they're doing, everything they can to get themselves ready, to be taken away by not being able to be on a facility and negotiate a curve or a turn is really, really, really unfortunate and frustrating to say the least. Next thing, number 4 on the list is Christian Coleman is the real deal. I know I had a top 5 on him earlier when he broke the record, and as I predicted, because there wasn't any electronic blocks or whatever, that his record did not count. And then the following week, because they were weeks later at Albuquerque, New Mexico, he broke the world record again, slowing down, mind you, across the line. But he ran that at altitude. And so some track purists were like, well, it was at altitude. And we all know that in Albuquerque, New Mexico, when athletes run there and jump there, they have the best performances they've ever had because of the thin air. And speaking from experience, I've coached athletes that have ran at a high school event, which is like a state all-star event called the Great Southwest Classic. that more often than not, our high school athletes in the speed power events do jump and run their very, very best times. And we've known, had a good understanding of how altitude affects performance since the Mexico City Games of the Olympics. But Christian Coleman had the opportunity to run at sea level against some amazing competition and proved everybody wrong and broke the record no matter what. So it doesn't matter. Christian Coleman has done everything he needs to do to prove that he is the fastest 60-meter dash man in the history of planet Earth. And really exciting to see, like, there are still things that he can do really well, obviously, but there are things that he's going to continue to improve on and clean up, and it's really interesting. He has a lot of backside mechanics, and he doesn't have what you would call the prototypical front side mechanics. But if you look at the way that he adjusts, he really dorsiflex that foot to pull it through to allow for the contact. So he's created his own set of mechanics that are really unique to him, that have allowed him to perform at such a level that he's the world's fastest man at that particular event. I'm very excited to see what outdoors is going to bring in terms of, the young man from China, and then Baker, and then Coleman, to see what they can do as they move towards outdoors, especially in a year where you're not worried about running a world championship. You can just chase fast times and chase the money. So if there was ever a time for the American record to go down, and maybe even something crazier, this would be the year to do it. We just got to make sure we're not dodging people. That's one of the biggest complaints in the world of track and field, is that the two main competitors, or whoever in a particular event, seem to not compete against each other in the sprint world, where a lot of the other events, the throwers and the jumpers, they see each other all the time and are constantly pushing their performances. So my hope is, guys out in the track world, that we make sure that A, we stay healthy, and B, we challenge ourselves by racing against the fastest people that are out there. I think that'll be really exciting to see. On a different note, a lot of people were critical after the USATF trials about certain athletes not making the events that they were supposed to, or running the times that they were supposed to. And specifically with Fred Curley, there were people, vultures kind of circling and telling him what he can and can't do, and how he should be coached and who he should be coached by. One of the things I would like to kind of state here is that we got to be very careful when we're contacting people and telling them what they can do or what they can't do. I've reached out before to certain people, and people who are on my Facebook or buddies of mine. But the biggest thing is, when we have those conversations, is, if there's anything I can do to help, you tell me. If you need another pair of eyes, you need somebody else to sort things out, especially if they don't have a coach, then you could probably have a conversation. But if they got a coach, they got somebody training with them, your job is not to talk directly to the athlete. Your job probably should be to communicate with that coach. And that's only if you have a relationship with that person where that even allows for that conversation to have. So, Fred didn't make the individual event at the World Championships, in an indoor championship. So what? He's got a long career ahead of him, and guess what? He ran extraordinarily fast in his leadoff leg. He went 44.60 something in his leadoff legs from a standing start on an indoor track. That's extraordinary. Okay, on an indoor track, which has a very, bouncy facility and hard curves to manage, and people have been disqualified. So trust me, Fred is plenty ready to go, and very excited to see what he's going to do in the future, especially in outdoors. It's really awesome. And I think he's with a good group of people, obviously. And I think Fred is going to just continue to mature and grow and become an even better athlete. And all these experiences, guys, all these experiences in the world of track are like beta tests to allow you to have your best moment whenever that best moment may show up. That could be this year, that could be at a world championship, that could be an Olympic championship, that could be at a Diamond League event. But at some point, you're going to get your training sorted out and everything figured out, and we're going to have really neat performances. And there are plenty of people out there that are doing some really cool stuff. So I feel pretty confident that, Fred is going to be fine. So don't worry about one performance that's really good. That's awesome, but don't let it linger. If you have other goals or other things you want to accomplish too, on the flip side of that is, like, something really good happens and you want to have sustained success, you can't just live off of what happened here. We got to continue to work. Bill Belichick drives everybody nuts. It's on to the next week. It's on to the Cleveland Browns. It's on to, the Seattle Seahawks. And people are like, oh, why does he not? Because that's the mentality that he has. So on the other side of things, be happy and pumped when you do something really good. But on the other side, don't let a one negative performance shape who you are. People are like, oh, this is a fluke. I can never run that fast again. Except with minor exceptions in the world of track and field, some of the events where maybe you get a good wind behind you on a long jump or a javelin or whatever, a discus, most of the time it is super elite performance that you did required you and you alone and your coach and your training, not the conditions, not luck. It was you. So anyway, don't worry too much one way or another on a one and done. So that is number 3 that we just talked about. Number 2, indoor is awesome. Indoor is a really, really cool and fun experience, but it's indoor. It is a different sport than outdoor track and field. It really is. I mean, some of the events are different. The multi-events are different in terms of how many events you can get done. The length of a lot of the races are different. The number of competitors who are available to compete indoors and get qualifying times around the world is way smaller because there isn't a ton of indoor facilities, everywhere as much as there are as tracks or a grass field where you can go run to be able to train. So indoor track is awesome and it's a great experience and it's a cool way to keep us interested and intrigued in years where we don't have a major world championship, outdoors or an Olympics outdoors, but it's a different sport. And so we have to remember that. And because of that, when we start to make predictions about what's going to happen, this athlete's going to accomplish this athlete did this, or, oh my God, the world's collapsing. Same thing is kind of the last point. It is a different sport. So there are people who are really, really successful indoors, and there are people who are really successful outdoors. And then there are those amazing folks who are good at both. But the air is different. I don't know if you've ever ran in an indoor facility, but man, oh man, when you're running and you're sprinting at full speed, your lungs and your throat feel completely different. Even the environment, you've got this energy, this loudness, the athletes and the coaches and the cameras are all on top of you. Where an outdoor track, things are kind of more spread out. And so that's good and bad. If you're a coach, that's kind of bad because we want to be able to communicate with our athletes without having to create hand signals and holding up a shoe and doing all sorts of stuff to try to figure out like, hey, how am I going to communicate with my athlete when they're all the way over here? Now, thankfully, most of us have benefited from people managing meets, kind of figuring that out and helping us, but still it's a different sport. So it's exciting. It's awesome, but fans of the sport, fans of indoor track, fans of outdoor track, try to hold back your crazy predictions, the crazy, amazing things where you're holding people up on a pedestal where they're going to be the best athlete ever. There's a lot of things that have to happen before that happens. And then on the flip side, when you're trying to be critical and armchair quarterbacking an athlete talking about they're not doing this right or that right, guys, it's indoor track, which is interesting because it brings me to my last point, which is my final point, which is training does have consequences. And so when we look at the world of track and field, there were a lot of people out there that were blown away that, oh my God, the sky is falling. The men's American 400 meters, what's going on? We haven't been very successful for a while. Okay, well, first of all, let's give props to the world record holder Polish team. And let's give props to the dude who ran that anchor leg and ran down USA. Even having to run around because, we were moving out to the outside lane to try to slow because we knew that guy was coming. The Polish team is fast. And in the world of track and field, because of the internet and because of everybody getting their information out there, and because we as track and field coaches are so willing to share, people are going to naturally get better. So the sharing has consequences, but so does training. And that's when I talked a couple weeks ago at the Altus Training Center. They asked me to come up with commonalities between elite practitioners of speed. Well, the book itself, when I wrote the Sprinter's Compendium, the whole point of the book was to get a potpourri of different training. And so when people ask me the $1 million question, which is, what's the best training method? What have you discovered? It really boils down to it all depends. So if we want to be really, really good at the 100 and 200, then we might be doing the stuff that Tony Holler and Chris Corfist and Tony Wells was doing back in the day. But if we want to be good at the 400, then we need to be doing the training that Mike Hurst is doing in Australia with some of his athletes. We need to be doing the training that Clyde Hart has done. And it's not fun sometimes to do the necessary training that is required for elite performance in a long sprint. But that's the deal. Now, the other thing is that you have to remember is, guys, the world record was broken to beat the United States team. So the United States was flying. They were rolling. We just had, a 4x4 in college, which I did I think my last talk or 2 talks ago about, which was the USC Trojans. They broke the world record as a college group, out there. So the guys, the 400 is fine. People are running fast. People are doing the right stuff. Yes, training has consequences, but if you're going to have to be the man, you got to beat the man. And, in the United States, those guys are the man. When these other countries from around the world line up against Team USA, they know what is necessary in order to beat us. Okay. And it took a world record. So training has consequences, but don't freak out and realize that, you want to be good at this, we need to be doing these things. If you want to be good at this, we need to be doing these things. So for our developmental coaches and our college coaches out there, just use that experience as a selling point to why we have to do some of the necessary work that we have to do. But at the same time, realize that it also takes really special performances to beat a team that is at that caliber that the United States was able to put together. Guys, thank you. Put the comments down in the comment section for anything you guys think you would like me to talk about in the future. I'm interested in hearing your feedback, and obviously when you guys put out those comments, it's awesome. I will have to approve them just so we can kind of keep the conversation on the up and up in a mature way. But hit me back, guys. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you again. If you want more about this type of stuff and training ideas and sprinting information, look up my book, The Sprinter's Compendium. You can find that at www.sprinterscompendium.com, and you can also find it on Amazon. Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful day. And hey, say a little prayer that my kid starts to feel a little better. 101, 102 fever is not fun for a 4-year-old. All right, guys. Peace out.